It's a 29-page opinion, and it is a complete and total repudiation of the Trump administration's legal position in this case. It says that the state of Washington and the state of Minnesota have standing. They have the right to bring this case, and they have made a preliminary showing that the executive order is unconstitutional. So the stay put into effect by Judge Robart, the George W. Bush appointee in Seattle, is still in effect. The other point to make about today's ruling is that it is unanimous among the three judges, the Carter appointee, the Obama appointee, and the George W. Bush appointee. So there is no political division among the three judges. This case is not over. The legal proceedings will continue, and there are several possibilities of where we may go from here, including a request for an emergency stay of the stay in the United States Supreme Court. The Trump administration now could go to Justice Anthony Kennedy, who is the justice who supervises the Ninth Circuit, and ask him to stay the stay and reimpose the executive order. Justice Kennedy almost certainly will refer that request to the full court, the 8 current justices. But the Trump administration now has to make a decision. Do they go to the Supreme Court and try to get this decision reversed, or do they go to the district court for more extensive proceedings and try to get the order reversed there? Either way, Trump administration has lost dramatically and completely, and they're going to have to decide what to do now.
And Jeffrey, just to be precise, if it were to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, right now there are only 8 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, 4 appointed by Democratic presidents, 4 appointed by Republican presidents, and we don't know what the outcome of their decision would be. But if it's 4-4, this lower court, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision would remain in effect. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Wolf. Tie rulings when the court has an even number of justices affirm the lower court ruling. They don't establish a national precedent the way a Supreme Court opinion with 5 justices establishes a national precedent. But if this ruling, today's ruling upholding the stay, is appealed to the Supreme Court and the court splits 4-4, the stay will maintain in effect. I don't want to overly complicate this story any more than it's already complicated, but remember there are other challenges to the Trump executive order in many other jurisdictions in the United States. So those cases are now going to start bubbling up through the system. It is clear, I think, that the Supreme Court is going to have to address this sooner rather than later. That doesn't mean this week, but given the magnitude of this ruling, given the number of cases, given the importance of this issue, the Supreme Court is going to get this case at some point in the next few months.
Very quickly, Jeffrey, the fact that it was a unanimous decision by these 3 federal judges, Judge Canby, Judge Friedland, Judge Clifton, how significant is that in considering where to go next? If it would have been, for example, 2-1, would that have made a difference as opposed to a unanimous decision?
Well, as a technical legal matter, there's no difference between a 2-1 decision and a 3-0 decision. However, as a political matter, as a matter of sort of the public perception of the 2 rulings, there's a big difference between 2-1 and 3-0, especially when the judges come from different political backgrounds. This decision will have a lot more public credibility because it is unanimous, and I think it complicates the Trump administration's attempt, if they choose to make it, to disparage this decision as simply a political act. The fact that it comes from a diverse political panel will insulate this decision from a kind of criticism that it would have gotten if it had been 2 Democrats versus 1 Republican.
Kellyanne Conway, do you think she was breaking the law when she encouraged people to buy Ivanka's clothing? And are you satisfied hearing that the White House counseled her?
Well, I actually pulled the law to look at it, what the actual rule was, and it says very explicitly that you cannot use your position to endorse merchandise or try to sell merchandise. It's clearly what she did. She clearly broke the law. But I think that there are, again, this is not a felony offense, and I think it's serious, but I think it speaks to a much larger issue, which I think most Americans should be very, very concerned about. It's the fact that we still are now 2-3 weeks into the presidency, and Donald Trump has not removed himself from his businesses. There are serious conflicts of interest between him and the businesses now being run by his family members, and he clearly does not respect any line, nor does he respect the gravity and the seriousness of those conflicts. And now they're involved in international businesses, and Donald Trump is our representative, the people's representatives on the international stage, and there are clearly conflicts there. This is a clear and serious problem. This is just one small example of that, but this is unacceptable, and I believe in violation of the Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution.
The president been in office barely 3 weeks. Why can't you guys in the media and Hollywood give him some slack? Let him do his job.
Because of what he's done and said.
Really, they're only 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Give him a break. Can't you give him a break?
What?
Give him a
do you
break.
read
Let
the
him
news?
Do the job, which is the toughest job on earth.
The toughest job on earth has never been done like this. First of all, this is beyond the realm of politics. If you're just talking about politics, okay, let's pretend that it's just politics. I would have big problems there because it's a giant con, what he's done. He ran for the little man. And then what does he do? He gets into office. The coal companies can dump sludge in the river because, you know, that's what the little man is aching for. Undoing Dodd-Frank, because so many of the town halls in Appalachia, people were standing up and saying, Mr. Trump, please get rid of the Volcker rule. Because if I can't make certain speculative investments, it's killing us here. So that's just the political part. We could have a normal conversation about that. But this presidency is not about the political part, even 3 weeks in. It's beyond politics. It's about sanity. It's about somebody who makes stuff up, who doesn't read. His information is either anecdotal or pulled right out of his, what word, Reverend, should I, his behind. You know, of course we're worried when the president sees multitudes that don't exist, as in the illegal people, the illegal voting 3 million. That should bother you.
Fox News alert. We have gotten word from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. They have upheld the lower court ruling from Washington State putting a temporary restraining order on President Trump's travel ban, the ban that limited travel from 7 largely Muslim countries into the U.S. by anybody trying to visit, and also suspension of all travel by refugees into this country, especially from Syria, an indefinite stay there. So again, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld the lower court ruling suspending President Trump's ban. There had been some indications in the very critical questions that judges asked the government lawyer in the case that they had some real doubts about the government's argument that this was a key case, but you can know that this is now going to become a huge issue. President Trump said, and his supporters said, that he was acting well within his powers as president to make decisions about immigration, which is specifically granted to him in the Constitution, and also to make decisions about national security, and that he felt to continue this travel from these 7 largely Muslim countries and to continue the entry by refugees into the country was a threat to national security. Now the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is saying that it is not persuaded by that, and therefore the temporary restraining order on the president's travel ban stays in order. Now the question is, from the White House, will President Trump appeal this to the Supreme Court, or will he let the temporary restraining order stand and go back to the lower court in the federal district court in Washington state and argue again about the merits of this? Remember, all the judge did in that case, it's a lot, but all he did was put a temporary restraining order to stop enforcement of the travel ban by President Trump. Now that restraint, that temporary restraining order, stays in effect.
Again, guys, you are looking at video coverage from last night's protest after Guadalupe Garcia was arrested and eventually deported. Joining me now is Steve Kraft. Steve, this story has taken the nation overnight. I woke up this morning, saw Guadalupe Garcia's name trending nationwide on Twitter. All the national networks and outlets are covering this story. This is the first person in Arizona to be deported under Trump's new executive order.
That's correct, and she may be the first person in the United States who's been deported this way, and she could be the first of many people.
Right, right. And what makes this so unique, so under Trump's executive order, anyone with any sort of criminal record, anyone here illegally with a criminal record is deported. And, you know, President Trump, when he was campaigning, talked about illegal immigrants, and he spoke of some of the violent ones. He used terms like murderers, rapists, drug dealers, things like that. Guadalupe Garcia is a mother whose crime was identity theft because she used a social security number to gain employment at a water park here in Mesa.
Yeah, Golfland Sunsplash in Mesa.
Right.
So she was, she used a phony or someone else's social security number, which was very common for illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, whatever you want to call them, in order to get work. In other words, she posed as somebody else to get a job.
To work.
To work at Sunsplash. And back in those days, in 08, 09, then Sheriff Arpaio, was very proud of workplace raids, where he would, go in and arrest people on suspicion of identity theft or whatever it was, if they were illegal immigrants working in Valley businesses. Normally, he would get tips from people. Yeah, there's some illegals working here. Why don't you check it out? And then he would go to car washes or restaurants or Sunsplash or factories or different businesses and round people up. So she was one of the people who was rounded up. She was processed through ICE. She entered a guilty plea. She was held for about 6 months total behind bars. And while this was happening, she eventually was allowed out, and she was allowed to stay in the country because then President Obama issued an executive order saying unless you are a criminal, and not just this kind of criminal, which was using someone else's social security number that you don't even know who they are in order to get work, but if you were, say, a violent felon,
right,
an armed robber or something like that, those are the people prioritized in the days of President Obama to be deported.
Right.
But I'm reading a little bit about the new executive order for our new President Trump, and he said on the 25th of January that undocumented immigrants convicted of any criminal offense, and even those who have not even been charged but are believed to have committed acts that may constitute a chargeable criminal offense. That could be pretty much everybody. So it's either people like Lupita who entered a guilty plea. She admitted that she shouldn't have been here, right, and used a phony social security number in order to get a job. She's deportable, but then anybody else who ICE believes could be charged with something, any chargeable offense, could also be, deported under that same reasoning. So the bottom line today is that Guadalupe went in to report to the ICE agents, which she was
as
supposed
she did
to do
every 6 months.
Correct. And she had done that for 4 years without incident. But this time, the door closed behind her, and that was that. She was deported to Nogales, Mexico, overnight. There was a big protest. They brought the van that she was inside back inside the ICE headquarters in Phoenix. And then once the crowd had been dispersed, at some point overnight, they took off again and drove her to Nogales and dumped her out at Nogales.
Right. And so I'm getting a lot of comments from viewers, people saying, well, we can't make identity theft legal. She committed a felony and she deserved to get deported, is what one viewer said. Someone else tweeting me, someone saying something to the effect, she was guilty of identity theft. If she stole yours, I wonder how you would feel. Keep her out. I think people have different interpretations of identity theft as well. Sometimes we think about identity theft in terms of people getting credit cards in your name and suddenly ruining your credit and taking out all these loans. But in Guadalupe Garcia's case, my understanding is she just used a social security number to gain employment so she could work here in the United States lawfully.
Correct. The same way that when you apply for a job, they go, okay, great. What's your social security number? And you give your number and they put it in whatever. So she did the same thing along with these other people who were busted. And there have been many hundreds of people who have been busted in Arizona and Phoenix because of Sheriff Arpaio's raids over the last 8-10 years.
So she wasn't using someone's social security card or social security number, to get a home loan or open credit cards or anything that would be considered a more drastic form of identity theft.
She was using a card to get a job.
To get a job, to work here, to earn a living.
That's correct. She came here at age 14. Just a few months too old to qualify under the DREAM Act. And so she has been here for 22 years, had been here for 22 years, after coming to America, sneaking across the border when she was 14. And got married and has 2 kids who are U.S. citizens, who are in their teens. She's about 36 years old now, and she's back in Mexico, a place that, according to her family, she really doesn't have many contacts, and so there you go.
Right. Right. And I know a lot of our viewers really upset, thinking that her children should be sent across the border too. People saying that, well, she stole a social security number to get a job here. She stole that job from an American that deserved it. I'm seeing reports like that coming in from our viewers that are watching live.
That is a point of view that a lot of folks have. I went to Mesa today, which is not far from where this family lived in Mesa, and talked to some people there, and that was basically... she's a good riddance, basically. It's one less lawbreaker in our country. So that was pretty much what people told me where I went today, to get the point of view of folks who think it's a good thing that we have an executive order like this and people are going to be deported in potentially great numbers. So bottom line out of this is that now that we know that the ICE policy after President Trump's order has been to aggressively throw people out of the country, what is going to happen to the millions of people who are here illegally? And I think what the clear sense I got talking to community leaders today and immigration attorneys and those sorts of people is that we're going to enter a period now where people are going to go into hiding.
They won't want to check in with ICE regularly because they feel like if they go into that office, they won't be able to get out. They'll have a situation similar to Guadalupe Garcia.
They will hide. Because if you go into ICE, you're going to get deported. What's the point of doing that?
Right.
So there will be, just as in, it's overly dramatic to say like during a war there are people who hide. But as far as these people are concerned, they are targeted, and the only way they can survive if they want to stay in the United States is to keep their heads down, keep in the shadows.
Hide.
Essentially avoid all contacts with authority.
Right.
Any authority.
Don't do anything that could give you away.
Don't have a busted taillight. Don't turn right when you're not supposed to. Traffic stops could be a real problem for people. Don't call the cops.
For anything.
For anything at all.
Interesting.
So it'll be just sort of interesting to see how it
Here's my
plays
thing.
out.
I understand that Donald Trump made this a big part of his platform. He had
That's true.
campaigned on it. I just think personally, if Donald Trump was going to get his point across to both sides of the aisle, that perhaps the first major deportation should have been someone who had committed a very violent act. For example, while he was on the campaign trail, he talked a lot about the death of Kate Steinle in San Francisco and the illegal immigrant that shot her and killed her on that San Francisco pier. Or, for example, that QT clerk here in Arizona that was shot and killed by an illegal immigrant. There's so many moments.
You're talking to yourself.
I'm just saying that there are these people out there that are violent criminals, that are murderers,
But that was already
that are rapists.
But that was already the law. Our law has been, under the Obama executive order, that the really bad people, like those people who were bad, were supposed to have been picked up and deported.
Right,
if
but
they
some of
weren't
them
thrown in
hadn't been
prison.
deported. And so maybe if Trump was to get his point across, he should have gotten these people out and, perhaps promoted that. Like, look, I'm getting the really bad guys out. And I think people on both sides of the aisle would have cheered that on.
Clearly you're wrong. That is not the policy. That is not the executive order. There's no special targeting for criminals. I think it would be, from the president's standpoint, very nice, of course, to get the worst of the worst deported.
Right.
But it's also nice to get everybody deported.
Okay.
Because his point of view has been, and he was very clear during the campaign, and he won the election, you're breaking our law, you don't belong in our country, we want to get you out of here. That's why the wall is important to him. It's to keep those kinds of people, which is everybody,
right,
who is not a legal immigrant, out of the United States with a Great Wall.
So my question is, what could Guadalupe Garcia, what could she have done to become legal? I mean, she had been here in the country for over 2 decades.
The answer is nothing. Guadalupe Garcia never had a chance and never would, and nor would anybody else. The law is clear. If you sneak over the border into the United States, you never have the option of becoming a legal American citizen, period.
Interesting.
What you'd have to do is self-deport, go back to Mexico, stay there for a period of time, I believe it's 10 years, and then reapply. And that might take another many years in order to get in. And then, even then, we have quotas of the number of people we want from Mexico, and the kinds of people we want from Mexico are not people like Guadalupe Garcia. America prioritizes people with skills. So, for example, if you're a software engineer and you're from Guadalajara and Intel would like you to work on its new chip,
right,
you can become an American citizen. You can get on that path because you have special skills that our country wants and needs. If you're just somebody who is unskilled, wants to come to America, work menial jobs, work at a car wash, work at Sunsplash, cleaning the place up, cleaning the water park.
Right. They're saying that that's a job that a regular American could have had.
That's the argument, right, that a regular American could have had it, and the debate there is, do regular Americans want these jobs? And in a lot of these menial jobs, they have had trouble getting people to work in those jobs.
Right.
So if you're working minimum wage and you're cleaning a water park, they may or may not be able to get a lot of people to work there paying what they want to pay them. And so the argument has been for people who want reform here, look, if it comes to picking cantaloupes, it's back-breaking work. You can't get American people to do it. We don't want to work at car washes. We don't want to clip palm trees. We don't want to do roofing. We don't want to paint houses, especially in the summer. We don't want to do landscaping. There's a lot of things that, American citizens don't want to do. At least it's hard to get them to do it at minimum wage rates. So either you exclude people, and then the people who are here working at the car wash, you pay them more money, or you get more money to work at Sunsplash,
right,
which is a menial job.
Right.
Or somehow get a guest worker program or something to get people in to take jobs that Americans supposedly don't want to take. So
right,
it's a difficult issue. It's an emotional
issue. It's a controversial issue.
It's a controversial issue, and people on both sides of it have very understandable and deeply held feelings about it.
Right.
So today we heard from both sides, people who want all the immigrants out, kick them out by any means necessary.
Right.
And then it's unfortunate, it's sad, but they're not supposed to be here, go home. I heard that today quite a bit.
Right.
The other side of it is, in a sense we were invited in because we're doing stuff that you guys don't want to do, you can't do, you're too lazy to do, it's too difficult and painful to do it, and you don't want to make crummy money and pick oranges.
Right. They're basically saying that there's some Americans out there that find these menial jobs beneath them. Is that the gist of it?
That at the price you're getting paid.
Right.
So if you're getting paid $10 an hour and you're picking oranges, if you've ever been out to an orange grove and watched that process, or cantaloupes or lettuce or anything else, I mean, a lot of us couldn't last a single day doing that, much less do it for years and years. So, and there's a lot of other kinds of jobs that, making beds in a hotel. There's cleaning a hotel room. Traditionally is something a lot of people at that price point don't want to do. Now, if someone's going to pay you $25 an hour, all of a sudden you're going to be happy to make that bed.
Right, but then the rates of those hotels are probably going up.
This is why it's a debate, because a lot of big employers, especially big agricultural employers, are saying, look, Mr. President, we understand your concerns with illegal immigration. However, we simply can't get people to work in the fields picking grapes,
right,
paying what we want to pay them. And if we pay them more, that means a bottle of wine or a bottle of grape juice is going to be twice as expensive, and we're going to have trouble selling it. And we're going to have trouble competing with foreign countries. So what is the balance? Will there ever be a program, a guest worker program, so folks like these can come in and then go back and forth between their home country and our country to do stuff that we don't want to do, that they're eager to do so they can make better money and live in their country? Is that ever going to happen? In the current political climate, probably not. And so we're going to have a situation where when we have a Republican president, people are in hiding. And then if it flips and we have a Democratic president, in all likelihood, they're going to come out of the shadows and they're going to live more openly. until there's another election and things change.
Right. And so for the viewers just joining us, the video that you're looking at on the screen is video from last night. So Guadalupe Garcia was in that van, protests erupted, police stepped in, multiple people were arrested. Correct?
7 people, yeah. It was peaceful. They blocked the path of this van. A couple of them were from the Unitarian Church here in Phoenix, and they're very committed to social justice and that sort of thing. Their minister, Susan Frederick Ray, was down there today. And so it was civil disobedience, and so they were arrested.
Right, I want to go ahead and rewind some of the protests from earlier. Show some of the protesters here.
So it's an issue that obviously is going to be front and center again. And I bet I will do a lot of stories. I'll be down there watching a lot of people getting put in vans and deported. And then the president said during the campaign he would like to see a deportation force. I guess in a perfect world that would be a special police force that would just be allowed to go through communities and root out illegal immigrants, find them and arrest them and prosecute them and deport them or imprison them. Of course, money is always tight, right?
Right.
So it looks like Mr. Trump's probably walked that one back, but he sent a clear message to our federal law enforcers like ICE that when you encounter someone like Guadalupe Garcia de Rios, that person should not be treated the way she was treated under President Obama. She should be criminalized, and she should be arrested, and she should be deported.
Right.
If we make lawful contact with her.
Right, and I do have a lot of viewers that are echoing Mr. Trump's sentiments. Miss Poole tweeted
I'm sure most of the people who watch Fox News now are all into this.
Right, Miss Poole tweeted me, thankful she was reported. We do not need illegal felons here in Arizona. Dexterity tweeted me, well, the law should not bend for anyone. She knew what she was doing. There's always the option of doing right or wrong, and that's Dexterity's point of view regarding stealing a social security number to get work.
Or just getting a social, she may not have even known where that number came from. She might have gotten it off of somebody else, in all likelihood. Somebody who was in the business of getting social security numbers and then selling them to illegal immigrants to get them jobs. But she clearly knew when she took that job that she, A, snuck across the border, B, was an illegal immigrant into the country and was getting a job under false pretenses. There's no question about that.
Right.
The rest of her life is completely spotless. These are, not that anybody cares out there, but these are family people, church-going people, people that, from what I heard today, nonviolent, spotless records, kids are doing great, they're U.S. citizens, whatever. So that was their argument. Hey, we've lived an exemplary life here in America, but to the people who oppose Guadalupe and her family, it's like, granted, you guys have been great, but you're not supposed to be here.
And I do want to read a few more viewer comments. Tammy Abramson tweeting me, so glad somebody finally mentioned identity theft as part of illegal immigration. And also Joe Foley tweeting us all the way from the UK. His thoughts, the crime to Trump is irrelevant. He just has to be seen doing something, whether it's effective or not.
That would be the British point of view. Well, you know how it is. I can't express a personal opinion, except to say, here's what one side says and here's what the other side says, and you guys figure it out.
Right. So now Guadalupe Garcia has been deported. She is in Nogales. We got confirmation of that this morning.
Yeah.
So now what?
Well, that's it. It's like dropping someone down a black hole. That's it.
And the protests, are they going to go away? What do you think is, I mean, Steve, you've been working here in Arizona for decades.
Yes, I have.
You've been covering the news. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, I think for one thing, everybody who's tens of thousands of people, if not more, just in our midst here in Arizona, who were allowed to live here by President Obama on the condition that they check in with ICE, are going to blow that off in a big way. No one's going to go to ICE anymore. The word is out everywhere, not just on our station or English-speaking media, but a lot of Spanish-speaking media. It's now a worldwide story. That means that for potentially millions of people around the country, they're going to try to disappear. And so they will just you'll be driving through whole neighborhoods of people now who will exist, but they won't exist. And so when someone comes to your door offering to, cut the palm trees or whatever it is, if they're not legally in the country, they're going to keep everything on the super down low. And they know whenever they go out in public, they're running the risk of being deported like that. So we're kind of back to where we were, I would say maybe 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago.
Okay.
And so then I think the question going forward will be how effective might it be at stemming the tide of illegal immigration if the message is out there that the government here is actively looking to catch people and deport them or prosecute them in a very aggressive way. And the word is out for people who are here illegally from any country that you have to hide. And I think we will be doing probably a lot of stories ultimately about people who are caught, people who are going through the process. I will watch a lot more people in vans like the one that Guadalupe was in last night, making that long drive to the border and across the border and being dumped out, and that's it. And we'll have
Where are they
more
dumped
protests.
out exactly? What is that like? I mean, are they just literally driven across the border? The door is open and they're just dropped on a random street. What is the process like?
That would
Steve?
be a great story to do. To go along with or alongside maybe one of these vans and watch what happens to it. They do not seek publicity at ICE. They do things late at night and drive people. You'll see the buses sometimes going, or the air flights going to other countries with illegal immigrants being deported. In her case, I would imagine we've been to the border at Nogales. Just drive across the border, and there might be just some little driveway right across, the other side on the Mexican side, and open the hatch, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then she's
Interesting.
left to fend for herself. So, but I think it's going to be a theme, and we're going to run across periodically stories of people. Thanks, Mike. Our producer, Mike Edgecombe, says, let's give him a shout out, that Aaron Reyes, that's Guadalupe's husband, says his wife is in Nogales, in Sonora, Mexico. That's the state Nogales is in. It's right on the border. And she has parents who are driving up to meet her from the south central Mexican state of Guanajuato. That's where she's from.
Okay.
The interior of Mexico.
So she has parents there.
She has parents who are somewhere in Mexico, and she'll go back to them. So the rest of the family has to decide,
Are they going to stay here, or can they go back?
Well, I mean, her kids are, I don't know the status of her husband. The kids are American citizens, so they can come and go.
Right. And I read somewhere that her husband was undocumented as well.
I've read that too, but we haven't independently confirmed it.
Right.
But she, if that's true for him, he's got to hide, and he can't, go back and forth, because if he goes there, he's not coming back.
Right.
So he has to decide where he wants to live. He wants to be reunited with his wife, he's going to have to leave the country. And the kids are legal American citizens, and that would mean that they could, because they're born here, that could mean they could come and go back and forth. So if they wanted to see their mom, they could go to Mexico and then come back here. Or they could just all move to Mexico and be together again. I think a lot of families, as this program develops and goes forward and is enforced, are going to make that choice. They're going to have to decide what to do with themselves. And I think a lot of people who are watching this probably really don't much care what those families do. If someone wasn't supposed to be here, whatever. People can figure it out when they go back to Mexico.
Right.
So, but I do know from a reporter's standpoint, there's people on both sides of this who feel sorry for this lady, but they just have different views of what the law dictates.
Right.
And while some people feel...
They feel bad that families have to be separated.
Right. But the other side, because I'm going to give you two sides, is the family doesn't really have to be separated. Everybody can move to Mexico.
Fair argument.
And then it's done. And millions of other people can just pick up and move to Mexico. And if our country has a labor shortage in certain sectors, we can deal with it then, and maybe both sides of the political aisle will come up with a guest worker program. Who knows? That's beyond the scope of my story today. All I'm doing is what happened to Guadalupe, and she's a test case and an example, writ large, that many millions of people are paying attention to today, and it's right in our own backyard.
All right, Steve, well, thank you for giving us your insight on this story. You guys can hear more from Steve on the 5 o'clock newscast. You can watch that on fox10phoenix.com. I'm going to continue to show you guys some more of the protests from last night.
Cool.
The police are starting to get closer, so people who do not want to get arrested, please get on public property, which is the sidewalk. Shame on you! 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 When I say shut down, you say I shut down. I shut down. When I say people, you say power.
All right, guys, we just fast forwarded the protest video from last night to show you that officers did arrest 7 people at that protest last night, the protest that erupted after Guadalupe Garcia was arrested, detained, and eventually deported to Mexico. You can see 7 people in total were arrested.
vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido.